All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Welcome to our second pivot session at the Brink. We're really pleased that you could make it. And, I'm excited to unveil some what I think is exciting content around customer experience. Looking forward to having an interactive meeting. Love to have you on chat, kind of discussing this topic as we go. So you can see my screen okay. The pivot sessions are really designed to help you think about our new normal. This is uncharted territory that we're entering, and certainly the Brink really wanted to be a resource for you. And as we were kind of planning out how can we be of value, we thought it would be great to have all the different advisors share content that we think could help you navigate these times and think about different pivots to make in your business. So every week, we just started last week, this is our second session, but every Tuesday at 10 a.m. is going to be a different topic. At the end of this session today, I'll unveil the next 4 sessions content just so you see kind of what's coming up, but really a variety of topics we're going to cover. The next one is going to be around marketing and best use of your marketing budget during this time. We're also doing a session on how to communicate with investors. That's coming up. Paul's going to do a great session on that. Kurt's doing a really cool session on leadership for renegades and rebels. So lots of cool stuff coming up, and we're super excited to have you join for the content that you feel will be most valuable to you. So, by the way, my name is Lauren Feehrer. I am one of the Brink advisors. I focus on customer experience. I'm one of the newer advisors. I've been working with the Brink for about 8 months now. In addition to working with startups, I also run my own customer experience consultancy called Loyalty Craft, which I've been running now for about 4 years. Prior to that, I spent about 15 years doing technology consulting, primarily with a company called Accenture. And then after that, a smaller company, we had about 1,000 people at Alliance Global Services. I ran the West region for the company, which meant I had clients in 18 states. The West region for a Philadelphia-based company is everything west of Pittsburgh. So it was an interesting, fun ride, but I had about a year to grow it to about 400 consultants. And then we sold to a company called EPAM. When that happened, I kind of joined the startup world and did a startup in the pet space, and then launched my consultancy. So throughout the experience, and I've worked in a variety of industries, everything from forklifts to pharmaceuticals to phones to fashion. I'm going with that PHF theme apparently. But no matter what those industries are, one thing I found was really in common with all of them was that the customer experience was the key differentiator. And it's why I've really anchored my career in helping companies think about who's the customer and how do we create products and services that benefit them. So that's a little bit about me and the perspective that I bring to the room today. I'd love to just kind of share some ways we can make this time together awesome. So I'd love to see you. And so if you don't mind, and if you're not shy, I'd love to see you on video. I know our hair isn't perfect these days. That's perfectly fine. I'd really just love to see your eyes and your smiles if you're comfortable doing that. I'd also love to hear from you and have you share your comments and your questions in the chat. I will be doing my best to follow that and answer your questions as they come up. So feel free to join us through the chat. Please do, I think when you enter in, you're already muted, but please mute yourself just to avoid background noise. But please come off mute if you have a question or something you'd love to share. And finally, I definitely want to share that, a lot of these things are my opinions and everyone has, their own perspective. Just please try to be open to new ideas, new concepts, and inspiration, obviously not just from me, but from the community around us. So with all that, I'm going to get started. Any questions or comments before we begin? All right. And I'm really hoping you guys come on video. It'd be great to see you all. Feel free to chat as well. We'd love to know what industry you're coming in from and what you're working on. All right, good to see you guys. Thank you. So, why are we here? Couple reasons. Let's see. And I think Oh, someone, somehow we got someone else's screen. Give us 1 second to figure out kind of what's going on here. Apologies for that. All right, hopefully you guys can see my screen again where it says, why are we here? Can this be on video? Just give me a thumbs up if that's, if we're back. All right, cool. Thanks, Jerry. I saw your thumb. Good to see you back here in Pivot too. So why are we here? A few different reasons and things I want to focus on. One is first actually thinking about the pivot perspective from what our customers are doing and the pivots that they're making in these uncertain times. I want to examine specifically with you the moments that matter in their customer journey and get you thinking about actually looking at customers from the perspective of personas and customer journey maps. So I'm going to bring in some elements of something called human-centered design to help you think about that. Then we're going to get into understanding the requirement in this new environment to move from following our trend lines of the past, following that historical trend and saying, let's look at this differently. Let's actually look at it from the perspective of sensing and of empathy. So that's why we're here today. I hope this is content that's going to be valuable to you and that these are things that you can make actionable within your business. So let's get started. I want to level set first in terms of the term customer experience, because I think you may have very different definitions of it. I know it's a relatively newer term for folks. And well, you know, I get comfortable with saying, because I've been in this field for the last decade, not everyone is as familiar with it. So I want to start with just getting us all level set on the definition of customer experience. And the way that I define it is that it's the sum of all the interactions that a customer has with an organization over the lifetime of that relationship with the company. And the important part about that is that it's the feelings, it's the emotions, it's the perceptions that the customer has with those interactions. So what it is not, and this is where people sometimes introduce me and say, oh, she's that customer service person. And I'm like, no. The service is the reaction, right? Customer service is what happens when the customer experience goes wrong. So customer experience is more proactive, it's more thoughtful and strategic around looking at the end-to-end journey a customer has. And sure, the service experience is one piece of that journey, but it's not everything. The same with customer care, customer success. Those are sections of the customer experience, but they're not the totality of the experience. And so taking that holistic view, it's not just whether or not a customer is satisfied, but it's, you know, how are we creating a journey that creates an emotional response. It's also not marketing. Sometimes people think that, oh, this is the marketing lady with the drink. But I will say that, you know, when you think of the experience, it's much more than, and it actually shouldn't just be what's said at face value. It's really looking at how a company operates and how they deliver on the brand values and the brand promises. So that's what it's not. It's also not a technology solution. And I do think, especially now more than ever, we need to examine the omni-channel experience and the way that customers are interacting with brands, both digitally, but also that offline experience. And when they do have human contact, what is that like? And it's also not just the front line. The experience is delivered through, you know, holistically within an organization. And so this is deeply rooted in culture. I'll stop there. I'm going to just check the chat. Any questions, and feel free to go off mute if you've got questions at this point around kind of what is the customer experience. All right. Well, one thing I said, and I know we've got some folks in the biotech space and med devices, and I mean, San Diego's great in terms of science. Well, I may have said a scary word, emotions, and unfortunately you're going to get a lot of that. But does this touchy-feely crap have any value for my business? You might be wondering that. Well, I hope it does. I believe it does. Here's some stats to kind of back me up on that. Salesforce did a study. They found that 84% of customers actually feel the experience is just as important as the products and the services. When Watermark Consulting studied customer experience leaders versus laggards, they found that the CX leaders had 3 times greater return in their stock performance. And finally, here's a big number, $98 billion a year is left on the table because of companies that fail to deliver on great experience. So I do think that, and I always say you have to have a business case for investing in customer experience. You have to prove the value. This isn't just feel good, activities. There's real value behind it. So, and Scott, for sure, we're going to get into some specific examples. I love that feedback. We certainly are, but I did want to make sure we're all rooted in the same kind of concept around this. So looking at through the lens of the customer, that's kind of where I wanted to start today. I want you to think about a few things that you could be doing around using customer design in your business. So step one is actually knowing your customer. And I'd love to hear, and feel free to comment on this, if you've designed a customer persona. Now, any business, especially like on the B2C space, you'll find that 90% of the revenue is driven by 3 to 5 customer personas. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the customer persona, you're kind of looking at one in this Priya Collins example right here. It's looking at not just the demographics of your customers or potential customers, but it's also things like this person's personality traits, their goals, what their day looks like, what their hobbies are, what brands they like, and specifically, and probably most interesting, is the pain points or the challenges that they're having in any given topic or a topic related to your brand. So that's the core of the persona. It is fictional, but it should be based on an amalgamation of the customers that you have or the target customer that you wish to have. So if you haven't created personas for your business, I do have templates that I'm happy to share with you to get you to kind of start thinking about this. By the way, I mentioned B2C is 3 to 5. It is more complex in a B2B model because you have different roles within any given company that you might be interacting with. You may have a user that's different than a buyer, different than a stakeholder with your product or service. So, and Regina, happy to send those out. We'll actually put up the customer persona template when we publish this content for today. And so for those of you, by the way, trying to take screenshots of stuff, don't worry about it. We'll make sure we get you this presentation. And there are a lot of outside references. Those references are on the bottom of every screen. If it's something that's not from me and I leverage somebody else's material, I certainly tried to note it as best I could. So on one side, you're seeing the persona. The other thing that's super helpful to do is to do an empathy map. And that's the side that says, for Priya, the things that she's saying, doing, thinking, and feeling. And what's really important about this is that you're not just kind of thinking of like, well, what are the demographics or what is the generalizations I can make about Priya? It's actually trying to get into what's going on with her. Like, what does she really think and feel and do? And so this is an example of filling out an empathy map. There's a couple different versions of this I have as well. I like to just start with a blank slate and have my team create like sticky notes for each category and come up with all these different ideas. So this is super helpful, and it is helpful for not only B2C, but certainly B2B as well. If you're thinking about, okay, like this persona is the buyer of my services, let me make sure I understand exactly, what this person's challenged with, what their goals are, and they may be different than the goals of, the user. And so it's really important to be able to map that out and to compare them. So, and by the way, the perspective I'm looking at your question, Scott. So the persona is the persona of your customer, your target customer. And like I said, 3 to 5 fictional personas are great. For a B2B example, you may have, you may multiply that out a bit, just given, the space that you're targeting and the types of relationships you have in a company. Okay, so the reason I bring this up in this step 1 is that it's really important that you think about what they're going through right now. So you may have had a persona, you may have had an empathy map from 3 months ago. It's very different now. And you have to think of what are their current challenges, what are they currently thinking about emotionally, how are they doing here and now, and how do I make sure that I'm relevant to them here and now. So that's why I say start here, and even if you have them, start here with updating them. So Scott, you also asked a great question about validation. And the validation comes through actually looking at your data, starting with that. So making sure that your demographics that you represented in your personas actually match your existing customer base. That's part of it. But then it's also doing the research and getting to know your customers, interviewing them, and finding out, are they actually thinking and doing and saying and feeling these things? So you have to validate it constantly by saying, okay, did I get my persona right? I guessed at this. I made a lot of assumptions. Now, when I actually go do the research and talk to customers, am I finding that what I assumed about them is correct or not? And in some cases, you'll be right. In some cases, you're like, whoa, like I didn't know that about my customers. That's really interesting. And that's the beauty of doing customer research. So the next step, and by the way, this is the second part of the answer to that question, is that getting a customer to come in and do a journey map with you can be extremely insightful about understanding a customer's actions, thoughts, and emotions. And you're going to see, here's the sloppy example of it, and this is how I like to start, is bringing a customer into a company and have them chart out an experience that they had with your brand. So you're having them put, what did they do? What action did they take? And they put a sticky note up for every step of that journey. And then the corresponding thought that they had, so what's going on in the back of their head, and how are they feeling about it? And you'll see that translates to a more formal version of that. And there's plenty of customer journey mapping tools out there in the market. This one is Expressia. Touchpoint Dashboard's another one, but it basically digitizes that same journey that you do with sticky notes. So you can see the emojis there of customer emotion happening, and you can see where you may have brought a customer kind of down in the journey, or maybe brought them back up again. And so looking at that journey from that perspective, what's really important is you're basically getting a story out of a customer of what their journey was with your brand. And the insight comes from having a customer tell you that story in this way, where you can actually see at a detail level, well, what did I do to them? How did I make them feel? And then you recognize these are the moments, and this is step 3 here, recognizing the moments that really matter so that you can invest in those moments above everything else. So if you have a moment where you created frustration on a customer, how do you fix that? So, and these are all examples I've pulled from some of the best customer experience brands out there. So you've got Southwest and Chewy and Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks. And I can't say that 100% of the time they get it right, but these are definitely examples where they got it right, where, after a dog passed away, they hand wrote, and they still do this, they handwrite cards, sending love and warm messages that are handwritten, which is, above and beyond in some cases, but it really makes a difference and connects to customers. In Starbucks, they started having stores where, they're using ASL, and it's just amazing to see the connection that they're creating with customers in that moment. Southwest Airlines has plenty of those moments, and they celebrate that, and that's a huge part of their culture. And for those of you who don't know the story of Joshi the giraffe, it's a little girl, actually, I'm not sure if it's a girl or boy, but a child left Joshi the giraffe behind at a Ritz-Carlton, and the parent was so upset because obviously this created a lot of drama in their house when they realized they left Joshi the giraffe behind. And Ritz-Carlton took the time to not only find the giraffe and send him back, but create a photo album of moments that Joshi had with his extra days staying on Amelia Island. So time at the spa, time doing fun activities, and they really made it special. So it seemed like Joshi had his own little stuffed animal giraffe adventure. So those are those moments of delight that really create that loyalty with customers. And so we can all have those moments with the brand, but it's really looking at the journey in terms of, well, when do I have those opportunities to fix something that went wrong, or to create a wow moment. And those moments create an emotional connection that's much, much deeper than kind of just looking at it from a transactional standpoint. That's why this is different from process mapping too. Because when you just as a business create a process where it's step, 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 you miss all this cool detail, and you miss those opportunities, what we call moments that matter. All right, so that's a little background on the perspective of saying, how do I pivot for my customer? Thinking about, well, do I really know who my customer is? Do I know what they're thinking and feeling and doing and saying right now? And then if I picture that journey map, try to go talk to customers and get them to create that journey map and show you these things, because there are opportunities to really shift to meet them where they want to be met. And I'll give you an example of a poor journey. So when we used to be on planes, and I used to spend a lot of time on airplanes, I would always laugh when the flight attendants would come around and offer drinks, and I thought, wow, that sure, that's great, but have you ever seen them wake up someone who is like deep in sleep, like nudging them, wake up, and it's like, what, you just woke me up, why? And it's like, oh, well, do you want a drink, sir? And it's like, no, I don't want a drink, I want to sleep, what are you doing? So it's like, sure, it's great that you're offering drinks, but like, let's take a moment and look at what our customer is doing, and look at the fact that maybe there's better times to hit them with your service. All right, so I wanted to do some research on what are companies doing right now. What are they currently saying to people, and what do customers want to hear? So I'm going to share with you a very fun video, and some of you may have already seen this one. It's a few minutes long, but I wanted to share with you a video that actually shows you kind of what companies are doing right now. You'll see some startling similarities behind all of them. So here we go. This is a mix of a montage of commercials that seem to fit together pretty spectacularly. So here we go.
First opened our doors.
Since 1926.
Since 1978.
For 60 years.
For 75 years.
For over 80 years.
In 90 years.
Over 100 years.
Nationwide has been on your side.
Restaurants have always been there for you.
Nissan has been with you through thick and thin.
We will do what we've always done.
Take care of people.
We're people.
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 People. People.
People and family.
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 Family. Family.
Family.
Family. Family.
Family.
Families are families.
Families.
Even now.
Especially now. Especially now.
Right now.
Now more than ever.
More than ever.
Today, more than ever.
Today, more than ever.
In times like this.
At times like these.
During these difficult times.
In these troubled
Yep, sorry about that. That was my fault.
times.
Challenging times.
Trying times.
In these times of uncertainty.
During this time of great uncertainty.
During these uncertain times.
During these uncertain times.
In uncertain times.
In uncertain times. Uncertain times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
This unprecedented moment in our history.
It's time of social distancing.
While things have slowed down.
As we turn more inside.
While the doors may be closed.
While the distance between us has gotten bigger.
The more we stay apart, we still find ways to stay close, even when we're apart.
Even if we can't stand closer than 6 feet.
We can all stay connected to work, school, and most importantly, to each other.
There's still ways to touch each other.
All without leaving the comfort and safety of your home.
Without leaving the safety of your home.
From home.
Home. Your home.
At home.
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 Home. Home. Home. Home.
Home. Home. That's the key.
Buick and GMC are here to help.
Con Edison is here to help.
Here to help.
Our teams are here.
We are here.
We're here.
We're here.
Here for you.
Here for you.
We're here for you.
We're here for you.
We are here for you.
We're here for you.
We are here for you. We'll be here for you.
Runnings is here for you.
We're still here for you.
We're with you. We're part of your community.
So you can trust us.
You can count on us.
And we'll get through this. Together.
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 We're together.
Together.
And together.
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 Mastercard.
All right. So the same ad writers, right? The same, feels like it. Feels like a lot of the same scripts and same imagery. And so I was curious because obviously a lot of that messaging, does it work? Does it not? What do people want? And so I took a look at some of the research and I actually really appreciate, and you'll see there's a link here in the presentation, which you'll get to the deeper research behind this. I thought it was pretty interesting research, and they actually show how different generations react differently to these ads too. So, and in general, millennials are much more skeptical of some of the messaging here, especially messages of empathy, wondering is it really true? Is the focus on people really matching the brand values that these companies espouse have? But if you look at some of the keys here, what people want to hear about first, and this is something I hope you kind of take to heart, is that they ultimately want to hear the service adjustments and updates of a company, and that's why that kind of blows everything else away. So they want to know, like, well, what's going on with your business? What are your hours now? Let's keep it simple, right? Simplicity right now more than ever. I want to know, do you deliver? Are you still open? What products and services do you have? Do you still have things in stock, right? It's that simple, like effortless experience comes first. Then it's wanting to know, how are you helping? Wanting to know that you're being compliant to, whether it be sanitizing things or keeping social distance, and then explaining things that you're doing to protect employees. So those are the top four there, more than anything. And as far as tone goes, the emphasis on empathy comes first, along with focusing on safety and honesty and transparency. And I do think this is a very big pivot from where advertising used to be. And you see it in the tone of the messages that come out. I'm seeing some of you on chat. I'd love to see what you're saying. Let's see. So, right, real substance, not fluff. Jerry, I love that point, because I think that's where the skepticism comes in, is that, are these companies being true to who they really are? And that's why customer experience is so much broader. It's so much about culture. And if you have that culture where we believe that you're a people brand, and then you're staying true to that, that really gets it right. I mentioned and kind of at the start that companies need to shift from a rhythm of trending to an obsession with sensing. And those aren't my words, they're Bruce Temkin's words. Bruce Temkin is kind of one of the, I'd say, father of customer experience. He's currently with Qualtrics and leads the Experience Management Institute. But he had started out with Forrester. He was one of the founders of the Customer Experience Professional Association. So true thought leader. And I love what he has shared around what this means. So instead of looking at our past trends of, where customers were on a trend line and, what our revenue numbers look like, we have to look more at how are we listening to our customers in a very, very different, obsessive way. And so I wanted to share a little bit more about what that meant. First, he highlights having a real focus on showing our humanity right now and being, and I kind of think authentic has been overused, but being very real. So Jerry, I love that point that you're making on chat there. Yeah, being real, not fluff, actually focusing on the simple, like things like asking less, listening more. Bruce highlights taking a hiatus on the metrics, and it's not that we're not tracking them, but it's recognizing that the metrics of today are very, very different than the metrics of 6 months ago, or even the year prior. And so in this new normal, we have to really put our focus on building up our immediate response skills and accelerating feedback cycles. So it doesn't mean we're not asking, but having pulse surveys or having those moments that matter where you're gathering feedback at the right moments. Kind of just like, don't serve a sleeping passenger, don't try to serve them a drink in the middle of their sleep. Pay attention to when they actually want to interact and how they want to interact and do so. By the way, that link is to the article that shares a lot more detail around those sensing focuses. I want to share with you, and someone asked for some real examples. So here's a few that I like. One is a company called Farm Girl Flowers. They're based in San Francisco. They're a startup that has had to make some tremendous pivots in this time. They just got through Mother's Day, but this woman is their founder, and she's on their Instagram all the time sharing messages, and the thing is that they're extremely transparent. So she talks about her PPP funding and the struggle she had with PPP. She talks about small businesses in her area and how they're pivoting. She talks about opening up 2 new distribution centers in the middle of all this. So she's really real. And so, of course, the Instagram of Farm Girl Flowers is like beautiful, gorgeous flowers for ordering, but then it's really mixed with the messages of this founder sharing what's really, really going on. And you're seeing hundreds of thousands of people watch these, and her videos are like one was 26 minutes long when she really went into detail about what's going on with PPP in her business. The follow-up to that was again like 13 minutes. So she's been really open, and I think that transparency is really special. For me personally, I've had to pivot my business to do the workshops that I used to do in person, doing them online. And I found a tool called Mural to do just that. And Mural really switched kind of its messaging around, hey, you're suddenly in the situation. Let us give you the tools that are going to help you get your job done. And I appreciated the simplicity of their messaging, how easy it was for me to take on a subscription. They widened their trial period to 90 days instead of 30. And it really made a difference in my own life in that it helped me get my job done. So Mural is a great collaboration tool for teams. It also helps you do design work. So a lot of the templates I talked about in terms of personas and empathy maps, they already have them. So you can just use the tool and create a mural based on templates they have, or you can create your own. So that's my shout out to Mural. The third one I want to share with you is AT&T. And if I'll skip the commercial for the purposes of time today, but if you haven't seen this homeschooling commercial, it's pretty relevant. I know for me as being, a mom of 2 boys who are 6 and 8, we're having fun homeschooling. And the commercial made me smile, and it also made me appreciate the acts that AT&T is doing to support schools and remote learning during this time. And by the way, showing my loyalty, I happened to switch over to AT&T right around the time that I saw this commercial. And I don't know if they had anything in common, but I definitely, felt a sense of, hey, I'm supporting a company that's doing some things right. So those are a few examples for you. Moving on, like I said, I'm going to pause that, but it's a fun commercial. It's got Chuck Berry singing, so who doesn't love Chuck Berry? All right, so I wanted to share some final research here from McKinsey. And McKinsey wrote a really great series of articles around empathy in this time and what businesses can be doing to demonstrate their empathy. They created this wheel of different areas to focus on, whether it be individual safety or security or convenience, or kind of finally that emotional bond and feeling of trust. It's a little hard to read. I actually, on the next page, will give you the list of them. So here we go. Around kind of the safety aspect of minimizing risk and physical interaction with products and services, actively contributing to safety by innovating the product portfolio. And you see that with breweries, you see it with companies that are now making masks. Pragmatic help to help customers with, kind of the financial challenges of today, whether it's deferring payments or offering assistance. You're seeing companies doing more of that. Also, this might seem simple and fluffy, but it can make a real difference in terms of supporting the emotional needs of customers who are trapped at home during this time, You know, and it's not just in the advertising, but how can you actually delight customers? And I mean, I give the example of, I went for pizza, and when I called the pizza place, the guy said, you know, our chef has been making this really, really special pasta dish. This is what you should get. It will, you know, delight your family, and it sure did. So it's a simple example, but I bring home that point of how do you connect with customers during this time. Guiding the shift to moving your business online. And I know some of our clients at the Brink have been thinking about, well, now that I can't be in person to deliver my services or to talk to my customers, how do I use remote tools? How do I, you know, kind of break into e-commerce during this time? It's a pivot to not only consider, but, you know, really test out and see how can you MVP that. Staying reachable and treating customers, you know, with that personal interaction, really asking how can I help, makes a big difference. And then obviously demonstrating care within the community. These are things that organizations are doing. I've presented this to some leaders in customer experience, some bigger companies, and I polled them, and it was just very, very cool to see these companies who were saying, yes, these are, you know, we're doing a majority of these on this list, and they're, you know, they're the right things to do right now. Any questions or comments from any of you on these? And I know it's sometimes hard to go, okay, those are big companies. How does this impact me? But I actually think all of these are things for you to consider if you're not doing them, if you have a business that, you know, maybe you're early stage, but how can you do any one of these things? How do you consider the pivot of doing more of this? And something that Bruce Temkin also said was, you know, a lot of us have, and I had a conversation yesterday with one of our big clients about, we, you know, only have one hammer and we have all these nails. How do we do it all? So it's really zooming in on what are those moments that matter in the customer journey, and how can we help shape those? So that's enough about that. Does anyone has questions or comments? My final kind of area I wanted to zoom in on for the next 5 minutes or so is around empathy. And I really hope this is not just a trend, and it's not, oh, well, now we're all people businesses and now we care. And the focus on ensuring that people feel safe and well treated and respected, I really hope that, is part of our new normal. And so I wanted to highlight the power of empathy and what that really means. So I'm going to share with you now a video that Brene Brown had recorded, and it became kind of cartoons. It's pretty fun, and I really wanted to start with this in terms of just sharing the difference here between empathy and sympathy. So I'm going to press play. Hopefully you can hear this.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
I love that video. That was a lot of fun. Too. 1 second to make sure my sound is not echoing. Sorry about that. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you just to get you kind of thinking about how do we be empathetic to our customers, and maybe consider, you know, and I appreciate, Tom, your comment here around, I get empathy with B2B, but I struggle to implement it in B2B. And I actually think in B2B, it's more relevant than ever. I mean, if you are serving as a trusted advisor to your client or as a guide in any way to a client, it's reaching out to them, you know, with that open arm or virtual, you know, eye contact, where you're basically saying, hey, how can I help you right now? Like, what's going on with you? And just checking in. Sometimes reaching out, kind of like that video highlighted, the fact that you are actually reaching out with that olive branch to just check in on folks is special. We're all going through different, like, we're all going through COVID together, right? But together apart, like together in very, very different boats. And so it's that question of like, hey, if I just try to connect with you and find out what's going on, how can I help? Just being a great listener in this time, it works above all else. Trying to understand, like, what are folks saying and thinking and doing and feeling? What are their needs? And how do I help address those as best I can? What are the insights I take out of that? So really turning an empathy map into not just like, oh, that's interesting that customers think that, but what do my customers think? What do my customers feel? And what are the actions that I can take? Like, I love those two columns, or the column here on this template that forces you to say, okay, what are their needs and what insights do I glean in terms of how I can best serve them? So, and I get, like I joked around earlier that, yeah, this is the touchy-feely stuff, but ultimately giving someone a call and just saying, hey, I just want to see how you're doing. And if there's anything I can help you with, I have this idea, or, you know, I just want to listen, you know, to hear what's going on with your business, and, you know, how are things with you? It can make all the difference. And I know I've done it recently with not just customers, but prospects. And you know, the conversation was just amazing in that just being there to listen and really listen to their stories, share with them that, and I learned this with Karen Dietz, who's going to be one of our guest speakers coming up. She did a great session on story listening, but being able to respond with, well, tell me more about that. And she has some great phrases that she uses to get people to really open up. And then kind of finishing the conversation with telling them what you appreciate about what they shared. And it is transformative, not just in these times, but in all times. Those listening moments can make all the difference. And I think they make difference with people, and I think they make difference with brands. So I want to end kind of in an interesting way here and do this before we kind of open it up to questions. I want to end on an inspirational note with a video that helps us think about listening during this time. We don't take the time sometimes to stop and breathe and just listen to what's around us. And I had shared this with a group, I think 3 weeks into our stay at home, and now we're in, I don't even know at this point, I don't even know what day it is, right? Week 10 or week 11. It's still, to me, as relevant and inspirational as the first time I heard it. I hope you kind of gain something from it and just sit back and kind of watch this unfold. Give me one more second to share it. Sorry for, we learned today that there's an echo when I share my computer sound, so one second to do that. I'll play this, like I said, sit back for the next few minutes and enjoy the music.
Hallo allemaal, ik ben Pierre Bijzer en ik speel hoorn in het Rotterdamse Philharmonisch Orkest.
Mijn naam is Maria Dinjan.
Jan Jansen.
Anja van der Maat.
Juliana Sommerhalder.
Khaled Samson.
Annelien Stukker.
Simon Wierega en ik speel trompet.
Wendy Lelyveld.
Arjen Leenders.
Pierre Volgers.
Ik ben Rosalinde en ik speel altviool.
Laurens Slotto.
Josephine Lek.
Ik ben Hendrik Johannes.
Wilke Bijnema.
Pieter Neutelen.
Ik ben Saskia.
En ik ben Wim.
Wij spelen in het Rotterdamse Philharmonisch Orkest.
We moeten ons aanpassen aan een nieuwe werkelijkheid.
En oplossingen vinden
Om elkaar te steunen.
Creatieve krachten helpen ons hierbij.
Laten we out of the box denken.
En innovatie gebruiken.
Om het samen te doen.
En ons verbond met elkaar te blijven voelen.
Als we het samen doen, gaat het ons lukken.
I hope that was an enjoyable break from thinking and just getting a chance to listen. some really great dialogue is happening on our chat. And I'd love for those of you in the time that we have left, we've got just a few more minutes, but I'd love to open it up to you conversing together. There's a number of great comments between Jerry and Tom and Scott here, and lots of you just talking about how do we really create that connection and not feel like, we're awkwardly selling during this time. And I love the suggestions here of just use it as a time to share, and see truly like that question about how do I help, recognizing this is a different time that we all have to get through, and how do we get through it together. I love the book, Getting Past No, and it's that concept of how do I sit on the same side of the table as you, rather than feeling like, it's me against you, and it's like, reacting and offense, defense. Let's think about being on the same side of the table, approaching challenges together. And so how do we work on that together? I think that's what really matters. And sometimes the customers is really understanding their industries, what's going on, what do we think the new normal is going to feel like. Just even engaging in that conversation can be really helpful for someone to think about, well, where's my business going? And having that dialogue. I know that's a lot of times where the conversations have gone with my B2B customers, is thinking about, okay, well, what does this look like? How are we getting back to work for those who are, or is everyone going to stay at home? What does that look like and feel like? What tools are we using to make our lives easier? How can our products and services change to be more, accommodating of our end customers? I mean, lots of great dialogue can happen if you simply ask the questions and sit back and really listen and respond. So I know that's my perspective, and like I said, the chat's been great, and I think there's a lot of really great perspectives from each of you to share. Feel free to come off mute and ask any other questions or things that you'd like to go back to.
So I'd love to, and maybe I'm just being dense here, kind of in line with this chat. The thing I find with doing this kind of empathy work is like, for getting connections with customers, absolutely. I can do that all day. I can get where the customers are excited when I call, like that part is very straightforward to me. But especially in this day and age, like transitioning that to actually something that might eventually lead to a sale is another thing. And part of it is just that transition, but there's also like, sometimes that, I feel like you're coming to the door and someone's in their bathrobe and you're like, hey, can I show you a demonstration of my vacuum right now? And they're like, this isn't the time. Like, we'll talk about vacuums in a year.
Right. Well, and being respectful of that too, knowing that, like you're waking them up from sleep on a plane, or bathrobe's a great example too, right? And it's kind of being astute to what's appropriate and being very real with that, and even giving that, hey man, I'm so sorry, like I get you, like I was in my bathroom.
The issue is though, where like our product maybe, like if you're like, when people are like, I'm a safety product, right? So right now when people think safety, all they think about is COVID. And so like, I've tried some transitions and they just always feel so forced, but at the bottom of at the end of the day, I do need to promote some kind of sales.
Yeah.
Can I ask? Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I talk a lot. I type a lot. Sorry, my apologies.
No, we love it.
Hey, Scott, just curious, what do you sell?
So I sell a aftermarket addition to industrial machinery that makes it safer to use, kind of prevent injuries, helps with OSHA, that kind of thing.
Oh, dude. I mean, you have to. So you have to here. Take it from a sales guy. I'm just a sales guy. I don't know anything. But if I were you, and that's a fantastic product, it's all about safety. Look, you can't prevent your employees from having COVID-19 only to have an industrial accident. I mean, let's not forget the basics of the job. So I would just say to you, look, it's right now your conversation is top of mind for everybody, right? How do you keep them safe, not just from disease in the air, but keep their fingers intact when they're operating their machinery? This is what you do. And
that sales pitch makes sense, but it's also like it's like the middle of daytime and I'm trying to point out the moon. It's like there's something else that's pretty bright in their eyes right now.
Yeah,
Well,
I guess I'm a very talkative person, so I'll grab you and make you look at the moon and talk about how bright that moon is, even in the daytime. Isn't it amazing how bright that moon is? Blah blah blah. I don't know. I would just offer Scott that this is our time. I'll say this to everybody. I actually think sudden shifts in the status quo is the perfect time for entrepreneurs. I've made more progress in my small startup than I could have ever imagined at home in quarantine. Because I can tell you, I've talked to 5 CFOs in the past 2 weeks. Every single one is at home waiting for my call. And I'm on the verge of a multi-million-dollar revenue contract for a startup that I just started. I don't even have product yet. I just think, in my humble opinion, right now is our time. The large companies are putting out ridiculous fluff that's talking about how they'll always be here, they're nice to you. I'm giving real value to real companies right now. That's what I can do because I'm agile. I've got resourcefulness. I'm creative. I'm hungry. I'm hungrier than any of these companies can be. So I would just submit to everybody, guys, this is our time. I mean, there's no time better than right now for entrepreneurs, my opinion. Okay, I'll shut up now.
never shut up, Jerry. We love the enthusiasm, and it's great to get that perspective. And it's actually what I appreciate about our first pivot session too, was hearing John's enthusiasm for innovation and for the fact that I love the fact that you're saying you're agile, you're nimble, you have that ability to very quickly spin something up that might be new, and so lean into that. You know, and you're right. So all the CFOs are sitting there at home going, all right, like I've got this time. Yeah, call them. I agree. Any other? I know it's 11 o'clock. Thanks again, Jerry, for your inspiration, and thanks, Scott, for asking the question. Let's all shoot for the moon, right? Any other comments or questions from the group? All right. Well, thank you all so much for sharing, for being part of today. I hope that you were able to take a nugget away from this session that you can apply into your business. Like I said, we're going to be posting and sharing out with all of you where to get this material, as well as the templates that I mentioned for personas and empathy maps. So thanks again for being part of today, and hope you have a great week. Oh, by the way, for those of you interested in what's next, here we go. The next 4 sessions are always Tuesday at 10, but Catherine's going to share a session on marketing efficiency, which is all about conserving cash and focusing on performance. We are going to have a guest speaker, Karen Dietz. She's a wonderful speaker on storytelling and great listening, like I was emphasizing before. Kurt Becker is going to be doing a session on June 9th on leadership and pivoting for renegades and rebels. I'm so excited about that one. And Paul's going to be focusing on changing direction in our communication around investor pitches. We're going to keep going. I know some of you have given feedback that you want industry-specific sessions, and we are finding our speakers for that. And we'll be continuing this. So these are the next 4, but we've got things coming into July as well. So look forward to continuing these sessions. And yeah, thanks, Jerry. I'm rooting for all of us too. So thank you all. Have a great day. Take care.